first full year as Oasys. I know you got a lot to look forward to and a lot of exciting things ahead of you.
I wake up every day and have fun doing this and helping people grow their business and solve problems and just being there for people. So it's been a great year and looking forward to 24 and looking forward to having everybody in Austin.
Welcome into the Independent Thinking Podcast. This is your host, Rob Stott. We're diving back into the world of custom integration on this week's episode of the podcast, and doing so with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Hank Alexander, our director of the Oasys Residential Technology Group. And you talk about, a really awesome opportunity. I know we've chatted with Hank on this podcast before, but one of those, end of year, start of a new year, reflect and kind of look forward episodes of a podcast. Hank has a ton to reflect on over the last 12 months of, the calendar and looking at what Oasys was. It wasn't even Oasys 12 months ago. So what it's become today and the path they have moving forward. There is a ton to dive into, and had a pleasure doing so with him on this episode, but a lot more as well. This is really an opportunity to look ahead at some of the things that integrators can do to position their business in a market where things might feel like they're getting a little tight, so that they don't contract, so that they continue to have success and find business in new areas, new ways, new product categories. And we dive into all of that with Hank, on this episode, talk about some of the things he's looking at from a group standpoint as well as an industry standpoint, to ensure that Oasys members have, every opportunity available to them to continue to succeed in this fast-paced and just ever-changing category of consumer electronics and custom integration. So let's dive into it. This is Hank Alexander, our director of Oasys, here on the Independent Thinking Podcast. All right, we are back on the Independent Thinking Podcast, and an independent thinker of his own, Mr. Hank Alexander, joining us this week, our director of Oasys Residential Technology Group. Hank, appreciate you coming on, man. Appreciate you having a poinsettia in the background as well. I like the decor you got going on.
That's the extent of Christmas in the Hank Alexander office. Now, if we turn the camera around, it's a whole Christmas oasis out there. It's a big village of Christmas. My wife is a big fan of Christmas, so that was my.
I love it. No, that's fantastic. Also lets people know as they're watching this when we recorded. So truly an end of year podcast.
It is.
To get ready to look back at 23 and ahead to 24. But man, we have a lot to catch up on from this year, on just what went down in the world of custom integration within Nationwide Marketing Group. But let's try to do it, right? Let's recap what it was, and then we'll dive into the future, what the future holds for this group. But I know we had a podcast a few weeks, maybe months ago at this point, but talked about the rebrand. You're coming out of a year where you didn't have the name Oasys.
Oh no, I didn't have. So it's funny when you think back to January of 23. There was no field team. We were HTSN. We were 210 members, 36 or so vendors. You think back of all the changes. We rebranded. We hired 4 field people. We're 67-ish brand, 68. We weren't in lighting. We are now. We had our first ever Oasys Summit. You think about all the things that we're almost 300 members today as of this morning. We're like right on that very edge of 300. So big growth in vendors, big growth in members, big growth in human resources headcount, stuff. It's been a fun year. Looking back, it's like, wow, we did a whole lot in 12 months.
Not even. Like, if you think about it, the rebrand didn't really happen until the work, let's be fair, the work was going on probably end of 22 into 23, but like from the kickoff of, I want to say, well, we officially announced it at primetime in
Okay.
Dallas.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, so that was March, late March. From that moment on, like that's when everything seemed to happen and kind of come together fast. And you talk about the summit was only a month and a half later. So, I'm sure our events team had some thoughts on you trying to rebrand your summit in a short period of time, but
They weren't real pleased with that.
but we
It's
got.
funny because I still find little HTSN Easter eggs on things sometimes. I'm like, oh, erase, erase, erase.
Well, it's crazy to see, how quickly, like to your point, it all came together. If you had to bundle this past year up in one word that isn't Oasis, you can't use the word Oasis. If you had to bundle it up, what would it be and why?
Growth. I mean, we grew physically with vendors and members. We grew the team. I think we grew the mindset inside of the industry, and I'd even say inside a little bit of nationwide, the custom integration, what it really is, and there's a lot of opportunity in it, and I think there's more opportunity than we even really thought. If you look back a week or so ago to the CEDIA 2023 market analysis that they did, the last one they did, I think they said there was 11,000 integrators, and through some partnerships that they have with D Tools and Portal and stuff, there's 20,000 integrators in the market. So it's a lot bigger. And I'm not even sure that that's inaccurate. I think that might even be a little low. So I think I would say growth is the word for 23.
Yeah, how about from an industry standpoint? So obviously Oasis, a lot of growth. The industry too, seeing what CD is reporting out of that research. But how for members? Like, what would you think about? What was this past year like for members from a business standpoint?
I think mild challenges come to mind. If you think back to early 23, there was a word everybody was throwing around: recession.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Recession. And it got to the point that it was so used, people were like, are we in a recession? Is it ever coming? When is it happening? We don't know what a recession looks like. And it just never really, in my mind, never really materialized into a recession. I even was watching something the other day on some business show, and they're talking about a recession next year. And I'm like, we're just,
they keep kicking the can down the road.
Rinse and repeat. I would say, interesting challenges. The recession never materialized. From the standpoint of product availability, things got much easier. I think projects may have gotten a little tighter or a little harder to nail down. But when I talk to our members, and I ask them always, like, what's your 30, 60, 90, and 120 day pipeline look like? And of course, everybody's 30-day is, right in front of, and it's holidays, right? They're finishing off jobs, and people, can be in their home for Christmas and New Year's and all the parties and everything. When you look at their 90-day pipeline, it's good. It's healthy.
That's awesome.
What it was a couple of years ago, mind you, but it's really, really healthy. So, I guess that leads to, what does 24 look like? I think there's going to be some challenges, certainly. Depends a little bit on what happens with interest rates. That's closely watched by everybody. But I think we'll be a little bit of headwinds in the first part of the year, and then I think it eases up a lot in the back half of the year.
What does that do from an opportunity standpoint for integrate? Like, obviously pipelines, you like to see it full, like to have obviously business coming and things to do. It's why you're around, right? You're an integrator to do these jobs, to have these projects.
Yeah.
But what kind of opportunities exist for them, business wise right now? Like, or maybe another way to ask it, what are these successful integrators doing right now for their businesses?
Yeah, so a couple of things. New verticals, power and lighting fixtures. We've always been in lighting control. I was an integrator, and we even did lighting control. And I'm dating myself here, back in the 90s, right? But we did lighting control. So lighting has always been there, but now we've got lighting fixtures, and we've got a really good partner with American Lighting. We've got a lighting designer. I think looking at power is the next thing, and I don't mean just as in just a surge protector. I mean whole home, looking at footprint on the grid, all of those kinds of. There's a lot of things I think that are kind of a next frontier that we need to kind of be looking at as well. It will be at Lightapalooza in February out in Phoenix. And so I think there'll be a lot of that. That show is growing by leaps and bounds. And so I think it just shows that that's a big thing for us.
No, that's awesome. How about like outside of product category, like are there things successful integrators are doing, from a marketing or, on the business or that work on it, not in it. Right?
Yeah. So, if you look at some of our real successful, and I'm going to pick on Lawrence and Andrea up in Michigan, very successful at integrating social media into what they do into their business. And I don't know if you follow them. If you don't, everybody should follow.
AV Imagine, baby.
AV Imagine. You should follow them. Find them on YouTube and LinkedIn. I think they're on Facebook. I have to double check. I know they're on TikTok. I think they're on every platform, and they use different platforms to promote different things. So, LinkedIn is one side of things. Instagram is a side. YouTube is a side. Like they're using the different platforms to go after different types of business, whether that's maybe builder business in one side of social media and clients on another one. And like there's a whole strategy around that. And I think that they've done a phenomenal job of working on their business by integrating that into things. I always think that process management, we've got a education series that we're going to launch in 2024 for our members with Jason Sayin. And we just had Jason in our office in Atlanta doing some videos and some things. So we're going to launch an education series with Jason. Jason will be at the Oasys Summit in April. So I think process management, refining things, making sure that you have all the jobs, everybody's jobs lined out, and that they're staying in their runway, and it just improves the workflow so much. And I think that those are two things that people should embrace much more in this industry.
Definitely. I'm glad you mentioned the summit. We'll circle back to that. But I want to take the chance to, you mentioned some of the those opportunity areas and different things you can go, about attacking. I know we're both close followers of CEDIA and CE Pro, great coverage of the industry and whatnot. And they mentioned something too, obviously, integrators looking to fill those pipelines. Interest rates are high, so homeowners not really looking to move right now, which means they are staying in place, which also means renters are staying in place. I don't know if you saw the research about smart home technology and multi-family dwelling units. An interesting point was brought up about how renters they are happier, like almost 25% happier in their units when they have smart home technology than when they don't. And it was pretty high, like 80 something percent versus 60 whatever it was. So the idea of going after those the rental properties and things like that, or apartment buildings, is that you talk about opportunities, thoughts of just different ways of going about finding projects that integrators could tackle?
MDUs are a great place. Yeah. So rental units, multi-dwelling units, those kinds of things are phenomenal. Look, we've all experienced, little slowdowns in our businesses. When I was an integrator, when we sensed a slowdown coming, we went back and looked at the projects we did. What were our 24-month projects? What were our 36-month-old projects? What, were maybe older than that. And then we started going back and, boy, I'm really dating myself now. We sent postcards because we didn't have email.
You
We
picked up a
was
phone and called so what? Did you send
hey,
carrier pigeons? Like,
yeah,
did you send like is this Game
hey,
of Thrones? You had the owls, the ravens.
wasn't that long ago. It wasn't that long ago. Don't
No.
pick on the call. No,
Hey, you brought it up.
no, I did. No, we'd go back and look at marketing like, oh, it's been 3 years since we installed a projector or we
Yeah.
installed a lighting control, or how about this new thing or whatever it was. And so going back and remarketing to all of those people, I always joked with our team, like, people didn't invest in their home just to invest in their home. Like, they want to continue it and keep going and continue, make sure that it's always updated and the best and the latest and the greatest and those kinds of things. So yeah, it's a good opportunity to go back and remarket. And I think the MDU business is definitely an interesting one.
Well, the remarketing too, right? Like you think about, I think we kind of get caught up in this space because we're so intimately attached to it. But like you think about just one CES to the next and sort of the innovations that get introduced in a single year. I think 3 years ago, the idea of 8K might have been a faint, distant future type of
Yeah,
technology, and now here it is, like it's at the forefront in a lot of the
yeah.
top line TV. So like 8K didn't exist. Just the way technology advances, the idea 3 years might not seem like a long period of time to like go back and talk to some of those clients that you did business with, but like things are drastically different.
They massively. I mean, you think about just the change in the last 3 years. 8K is a big one. You think back to smart home and
Right.
you know like just how it's all, whether it's a do-it-yourself platform like a Google or a Ring or Nest or some of those types of things, or what Control 4 and Crestron and RTI and some of those guys are innovating and doing on that side, how much it changes year over year. It's actually why I like the consumer electronics business. So I love change. I like things to change and move in my life. And so it's why I think I enjoy the consumer electronics business so much, is because every day it's evolving, it's changing, there's something new. We'll be at CES and what feels like a few short weeks, but it's really a few short days, and we'll see a bunch of new stuff there. Meetings with all of our top vendors, and we've had some hints of what we're going to see, and it's going to be pretty exciting for
Yeah,
24.
we'll have to, I don't know how we'll edit this to make it be able to talk about it, but the fact I know I saw somewhere LG was already expecting a ton of innovation awards
Mm-hmm.
ahead of time. Like CES does all their judging because they for those that haven't been there, they release all their innovation awards and they have this awesome showroom in the Venetian, if I remember right, where all the product that is recognized in this program is there on display. The funny thing about consumer tech is this event is a space where a lot of those things are introduced and announced. So when you hear a lot of innovation awards are coming, you don't know what for. So it's like hard to tell. But the fact that LG is getting, I think over a dozen, if I remember right, around calls out specifically for their OLED technology. So like there's a lot of things happening that we don't know about yet that we maybe you're getting hints about that they'd have to off you before this podcast publishes if we say anything. However,
A few hints at some things coming, both from Samsung, LG.
yeah,
Um, like I said, all the top guys. But yeah, you're exactly right. Like, they have to enter those things for those innovation awards. And I've
now,
never heard an
right?
innovation award, but I got to think, yeah, like in
Yeah.
November, early December, those things have to be there, because you're exactly right. They have to be judged and the technology understood, and
A
uh,
lot of NDAs signed, I
a
imagine.
lot of stuff that goes on, and I believe in those innovation awards that there's a timeline that the product has to actually be going out. And like,
Yeah,
I don't know if it's a 12-month or 24-month, but I think that there's a timeline in some of those innovation awards
yeah,
that they have
absolutely.
things going out with. So anyway, it's 24 will, I think we'll see some new tech, and I think we'll see certainly 8K making a big push. Sizes of TVs have um, gotten ridiculous. Like, you think about 100-inch, think about 100-inch TV. So I've been at Nationwide in February 24. I will have been here 9 years. When I first started, it was, I don't know, probably 4 years ago, maybe 5. Sony had a 100-inch TV that was $45,000.
Yep.
And one of our dealers in Denver sold one to a high-end client in the penthouse of the Four Seasons in downtown Denver. And they used a helicopter to get it because it wouldn't fit into an elevator. They used a helicopter to put it up there. It was a $45,000 100-inch TV.
Flying through the air.
Flying through the air. Yeah, it was, I wish I had the video of that. You think about now the technology, that TV is a lot better TV. It's a lot thinner TV. And it sells retail. It sells for $5,000. I think the Sony sells for $7,000 or $8,000. You know, it's like, it's just shocking what we're seeing. You know, 100-inch TVs. I was at a Costco the other day. There's 100-inch TVs on display at a Costco.
It's wild.
I don't know how they're getting them home. Like I envision, you know, it's like buying a mattress at a Costco. They strap it to the top of the car or whatever, and then they always hold on to it with one hand going down the
yeah.
You know,
a little different with a 100-inch TV strapped to. You got to rent a U-Haul.
Yeah, get that thing in the back of a truck. But I think that's a place where, you know, you're going to see some prices in 24 on some of those things that are going to be just crazy. You're like, wow. I mean, you know,
right. Well, this
industry, Super Bowl, there's a rumored to be a Hisense that, you know, retail at $2,000. You know, I think integrators need to understand that the guy buying the 100-inch TV for $2,000 isn't their client.
Right. Well, that's the thing, right? Like this industry has always been about
eating. Yeah, the industry's always been eating their young, always. So don't get caught up in that.
But also like especially for integrators, I'm sure they deal a lot more with those early adopters that are like us that get excited about this, right? Like the guy that will go out and get that 45. That it's highly probable that they understand that a few years down the road, that TV that they just bought for 45,000 is going to be a tenth of the price. But they want it now. They want it now. They need it. It's like they enjoy. They get a thrill out of, you know, being one of those first people to have that technology in their homes, and they're willing to. And that's the client that you want, right? That's the client that you need to find. That, you know, they're probably in that collection of, you know, old projects you've completed over the years that you can go back to. And
when you think about it, if your client's next door neighbor bought a 100-inch TV, and now everybody has 100, not everybody, but the 100-inch TV is just a thing. That high net worth client that you did a project for, what do they want now?
They need to differentiate.
My neighbor has a 100-inch. Well, I need something bigger. So now we're talking video walls, right? Yeah. And so that's the next, you know, and those are those evolutions. That's that part of that going back to your customers and, you know, hey, I sold them a 75-inch TV. Well, 75-inch TVs today are kind of just everywhere, really. I mean, that's just kind of a norm. I hate to say it, but it is. You know, so it's like going back and going, hey, it's a great TV. Why don't you trade it in, or we'll do something else with it, and let's look at a 100-inch, or let's look at a video wall or a projection system or all of those things, right? So
no, it's crazy. And one more thing I want to ask you about before we dive into your summit is the other things that came out of that CDIA report. Like you mentioned the 20,000 roughly. You know, the integrators in this space. Anything else that, as you're looking through that, that kind of caught your eye, or, you know, think is important to call out ahead of, you know, this new year?
Yeah. Median size dealer, so just the midpoint of dealers, is 900,000 a year in revenue. And if you know, we've talked about it on this podcast, it's in a lot of our marketing stuff. We talk about it openly. Really, where we want to start talking to dealers is when they're about that $750,000 to $800,000 a year revenue, which tells me, you know, we're really kind of in that sweet spot in Oasys. We have dealers that are in that category and all the way up to $5 or $6 million plus. You know, CE Pro type, you know, CE Pro 100 type. We got a couple of those guys in the group. So we run a wide gamut, but what it really tells us is when we talk about that 750 to 800, we're right in that sweet spot, and we can provide a lot of value and a lot of help for those guys, mentoring, a lot of business coaching, best practices in accounting, hiring. We pay their CEDIA dues, education. We're going to up the ante a little bit in 24 with CEDIA. So we got some cool things we're working on with CEDIA for 2024 for education. I think that when you look at that report and you look at the average size project, the average size dealer, there's a lot of really interesting information in there. They did a whole rundown of brand categories and vendors. There's a lot of stuff. If you haven't seen that, again, if you're an Oasys member, we pay your CEDIA dues. You have free access to that. If you're not a member of CEDIA, you have to pay $1,000 to get that report. If you're not a member of CEDIA, it's probably easier to join Oasys. And
I was gonna say, join Oasys, save the $1,000 to buy a 100-inch TV down the road. So
all of a sudden, the whole thing is
it's full circle. No, well, I love that you brought that up because it's the perfect segue, about the size of dealer that is a part of this group and bringing them all together for a summit, right?
Yeah.
We got to experience that back at Nashville in May of last year, and we'll get to do it again in Austin in April, end of April, beginning of May this year. So I know it's a truly unique experience to see those guys all get in a room together, right, and share best practices. And the best part, and I'm probably stealing a quote from you, is when you actually see, like, obviously the newer dealers are going to learn a lot at these events, but it's those moments where the $5 million deal hears something that the $750,000 to $900,000 dealer is doing, and they learn. So like it's definitely a two-way street. So I mean,
peer-to-peer side of that is, you're exactly right, and it's why we do these things. Is we get everybody into a room. We got some great keynote speakers, obviously great vendors. We're gonna have demo rooms, some audio and video demo rooms for some vendors this go round. That was something that was kind of requested last year, so we listened to that and implemented that. I was just in Austin a couple of weeks ago for a CEDIA Tech Summit and went and visited the Hotel Van Zandt downtown. Cool property, a lot of fun. Really, really neat place. It'll be a really, it'll be a good time because Austin's a fun. I mean, if you're not having fun in Austin, you're not doing something right.
You don't know what's going on.
But having all the new members, again, that membership growth that we've had in 23, having all those people in a room, and all of our new vendors and all of that. I mean, it's going to be a packed house. It's going to be a lot of fun. And you're exactly right. And it's funny when you see that guy that's more established. He's been in business for 15, 20 years and has grown his business, and he hears something there that some new guy, that's 750, 800,000, whatever it is, and something they're doing in their business. And he's like, oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That.
What that tells me is, like, there's no egos in this group. Like, everyone checks it at the door, and they're willing to learn. Like, no one's walking around like, I know everything. They don't come to these events if they feel that way, right? They're there to learn and network, and whether it's learn from vendors, learn from the keynotes that you have there that'll be speaking to them, or from one another, almost more importantly, right? It's a cool experience. One of the completely off topic, but related to the summit, Van Zandt, I wonder if any relation to, like, Steve in the E Street Band,
I knew you were going to go there. You're not the first person, but somehow or another, I knew you would be the one that would go. What's his relationship to Stevie?
I get a little Sopranos action going on. Got Bruce down there.
Well, you just let the cat out of the bag. We're all going to go to Bada Bing, so I guess
no.
You might edit that out, Miss Kelly. I'm sorry. No. I just saw her. I just saw our head of HR, Miss Kelly. Just saw her head explode.
Well, you set some serious expectations for what's going to go on in Austin. So. Hey, if Tom signed off on a scavenger hunt in downtown Nashville, what could we say? No kidding. No, that's awesome. Well, I know that I'm excited to be out there and see what's going on. So I can only imagine, the excitement already building within the membership. to get there and be part of that second Oasys Summit. A lot of big things planned for that, and I know you'll have a lot more coming out, over the coming weeks too, as we get the word out about that and get registration is up and open,
It
so
is.
members can start signing up for that. But hey, first full year as Oasys. I know you got a lot to look forward to and a lot of exciting things ahead of you. So
Been fun. It's a lot of fun. I wake up every day and have fun doing this and helping people grow their business and solve problems and just being there for people. So it's been a great year and looking forward to 24 and looking forward to having everybody in Austin.
heck yeah, looking forward to it, man. Well, appreciate the time and
Holidays.
can't wait. Yeah, happy holidays, and look forward to getting together with all those members and getting all their stories. Plenty of podcasts, I'm sure, coming out of that show.
I would think there's a few people that are going to sit down with you at that show. Yes,
should be a good time, man.
yeah, absolutely. We'll get you a podcast booth down there.
Oh, I'm sold. You didn't even. I was already sold, and now you're up in the game for me. So,
not to give too much away about the hotel, but they're one of their, I don't know if it's a corporate sponsor or something they do corporately with Marshall amplifiers.
ooh,
So check in, there's a refrigerator behind check-in that looks like a Marshall amplifier.
Yeah.
It's just like, and you open it up and they give you a bottle of water or a beer or whatever when you check in. But there's Marshall amplifiers all over and guitars, and it's a really, really, really cool place.
I'm a geek out. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Flights are booked. We'll see you there. Awesome. Well, yep, we'll talk soon.
All right.
Awesome. And thanks again to Hank. Like I said at the top, just a great opportunity to any of these, early episodes of a year to reflect and look ahead at, how things have progressed over the past year to where we are, where we're heading, and providing some of those, unique glimpses at the areas that you can look to attack as a business to ensure that, you are remaining on top of the game and ahead of the curve in this industry. So appreciate him taking that time and doing that with us. And as always, appreciate you listening to the Independent Thinking Podcast, and we'll catch you next time.